In Davesboro, one of the many long-abandoned mining towns in the Great Southwest, the silence of the desert is shattered by a massive explosion of wooden debris as the Thing, Ben Grimm, is blasted by a gigantic flying sandhammer. The impact sends planks and splinters everywhere. Midair and already annoyed, Ben growls that this is a revolting development and warns his attacker that they're headed for a major beatdown. Even while being launched through the air, he's ready to dish it back twice as hard. Ben crashes through the side of a wooden building in the ghost town. Pushing himself up from the wreckage, he fumes that nobody sucker punches him without dire consequences. It's downright humiliating. Sandman rises up from the ground itself while gripping an enormous sand hammer. He mocks Ben, telling him to stop belly aching and act like a man, or the whole world's going to hear how the Sandman stomped the Thing. Ben narrows his eyes and fires back. "In your dreams, pal. I didn't become the idol of millions because of my sparkling wit." Then, grabbing a heavy mine cart nearby, he hoists it over his head. If he has to spell it out, he will. With a roar, he declares it's clobbering time and hurls the cart straight at Sandman, smashing into him and blasting his sandy form apart. Sandman quickly pulls himself back together. He charges in, telling Ben it wasn't bad. Not bad at all. I almost felt that. Almost. Not quite." Ben steadies himself. He mutters that he's going to stop pulling his punches and do better next time. Sandman snarls and asks if Ben really thinks he'll allow a next time. Ben shoots back that Sandman doesn't have much choice and asks if he's ready for round 2. They sprint towards each other, Sandman shouting, "Let's dance!" But instead of fists colliding, the two slam into a tight embrace. They laugh as they wrap each other in a crushing hug. Ben greets him warmly, saying it's good to see him and that it's been way too long since their last shindig. Sandman agrees with a simple "yeah," and they both grin, revealing that the fight was just their unusual way of saying hello. Not far from them, inside an abandoned mine, a mother and her 2 children are scavenging for whatever they can find. She explains that the company must have shut the mine down years ago, probably because it wasn't making enough money to stay profitable. Still, she hopes they can scrap together a few nuggets, just enough to keep them going for a while. Her son Mateo looks uneasy. He asks if it's really safe down there, admitting he doesn't trust the old wooden support beams. The mother reassures him that it's as safe as any other mine they've searched before. Then she tells Mateo to grab the buckets and take his sister Camilla outside while she continues mining. As the children head toward the exit, the mother turns back to her work. But suddenly the tunnel begins to tremble, the ground rumbles, dust falls from above. The old timbers groan under pressure. Camilla panics, asking what's happening. Mateo quickly realizes the rotten supports are collapsing. He tells her to run outside immediately while he goes back for their mom. Camilla hesitates, scared, but Mateo insists, waving her toward the exit and shouting for her to run, now. Back in town, Ben and Sandman are now relaxing beside the Fantastic Four vehicle. Ben proudly declares that it's his turn to supply the grub, listing off sandwiches, stogies, and plenty of beer. Sandman immediately asks if he's remembered the horseradish for the roast beef. Ben looks offended and assures him he's not a savage. They joke about old times, especially miserable lunches with the Frightful Four. Sandman shudders at the memory of the wizard slathering mayonnaise on everything, even hot dogs. Ben hands him a cold beer, teasing that it'll wash the bad taste out of his mouth. Sandman brings up the job offer Ben once mentioned with the Future Foundation, but quickly dismisses it. He tells Ben, "Get it through your thick skull, Benny. I ain't the hero type." Ben insists that deep down, he is. Sandman shrugs, admitting that he may occasionally stray toward the righteous path, but before he can finish, the ground begins to rumble. Wood cracks, then they hear a high-pitched scream echo through the ghost town. Ben immediately stiffens. "That isn't good," Sandman grimly says. "Sounds like a kid." Ben and Sandman sprint toward the sound and find Camilla outside the collapsed mine entrance, surrounded by rubble and dust. Sandman asks, You okay, hun?" While Ben asks, "What are you doing out here by yourself?" She's terrified, screams monsters while looking at them. Sandman immediately reshapes himself into a sandy version of Captain America, trying to calm her in Spanish. He tells her to relax and explains that they're here to help and that they're friends of Captain America. Ben, surprised, asks Sandman if he knows Spanish. Sandman casually explains that he once lived with a Latino family, but that doesn't matter right now. Camilla, still panicked, blurts out that she actually speaks English. She points desperately at the cave, saying her mom and brother are trapped inside. Without hesitation, Ben starts lifting massive chunks of rock from the entrance, telling her to stand back while they get them out. Sandman transforms fully into sand and seeps through the smallest cracks in the rubble. As he slips between the rocks, he tells Ben he'll leave the heavy lifting to him and meet him on the inside. Inside the collapsed tunnel, Sandman reaches Mateo and his mother, who are trapped beneath unstable debris. He partially reforms into his human shape and quickly checks if they're okay. Mateo, shaken but alert, clutches his mother and stammers questions. Who is he? How did he find them? Is he some kind of superhero like an Avenger? Sandman doesn't waste time explaining. Instead, he spreads his sandy form around, creating a protective cocoon that shields them from falling rocks and crushing pressure. With another portion of his body, he shapes a massive sand drill and begins boring upward, trying to carve a path out. He asks the boy's name. Mateo answers nervously. Sandman tells him he needs to do something. When asked what, he says, "Shut up. I gotta concentrate to get us out of here." But their efforts trigger another collapse. Sandman braces himself, expanding his sandy shield to absorb the impact and keep the family alive. Ben feels the rumbling and realizes their rescue attempt has caused another cave-in. Back inside, Sandman struggles to hold the weight pressing in from all sides. He tells Mateo, "Great, just great. Mateo, hold your mom tight. We're just going to have to wait for my body." Ben pounds his way deeper into the mine, smashing through solid rock with relentless force. He shouts that he's coming, his voice echoing through the collapsing tunnels. Inside the cave, Sandman strains under immense pressure. The weight of the mountain is pressing down on his sand barrier. He calls out to Ben to speed it up, admitting he doesn't know how much longer he can hold everything together. Mateo and his mother cling to each other, terrified. The mother asks what will happen if his friend doesn't make it in time. Even while struggling, Sandman answers with absolute confidence. They don't know Ben Grimm. He will get there. As Sandman struggles, he says, "He won't let us down. He never lets anyone down. He's too stubborn and ornery to know when to quit." Right on cue, Ben smashes through the final wall of rock, bursting into the chamber where Sandman is barely holding everything together. Seeing his friend straining under the weight, Ben asks, "Hey Sandy, you ready to quit messing around and finish your beer?" Sandman fires back that it took Ben long enough. Did he stop for a nap on the way? Ben tells him that crack's going to cost him, then immediately gets to work saying, "No sour pickles for you." With thunderous blows, he tears apart the remaining rubble, carving a clear path to the surface. Sandman reshapes himself into a massive sand tank, carefully protecting Mateo and his mother with his sand while following behind Ben. Ben keeps smashing through rock after rock until sunlight finally bursts through. With one final explosive punch, the rocks fly outward and they emerge from the cave in a shower of debris. Outside, Camilla looks toward the explosion and anxiously calls out for her mom and brother. Sometime later, a rescue helicopter arrived. Mateo and his mother are carefully loaded onto stretchers as emergency workers prepare to fly them out. Ben stands nearby, helping guide them towards safety. The mother, still shaken, thanks Ben sincerely for saving her family. Ben brushes it off in his usual humble way, telling her it's just what they do. Then, more seriously, he advises her to take care of those kids and to stop scavenging in mines. She gives a smile and replies that miners have to mine. It's what they do. Meanwhile, Camilla approaches Sandman and apologizes for calling him a monster and kisses him on the cheek. She tells him he's a real hero, just like Captain America. Sandman smiles at that, clearly touched even if he won't admit it. As the helicopter lifts off into the sky, Ben waves goodbye. Sandman watches quietly and comments, "Cute kid. Not too bright, but cute." Ben teases him, saying she's got his number, and asks, "Feels good, doesn't it?" Sandman denies knowing what he's talking about. Ben just replies saying, "Yeah, sure." As they head back toward their earlier lunch plans, Sandman reminds Ben about the sandwiches, stogies, and beer. Ben agrees, but still no sour pickles. Sandman grows and tells him to be a pal. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel.